Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star original continent based on novel. So let's start. Within the Thousand Treasures River of the primal region of human territory. When Luo Feng stepped back into the human territory, he immediately felt a sense of belonging. He was home. This is home, he said. His original earthling body, sitting in the palace with his legs crossed, finally got up, walked out of the palace, and started to tour the palaces within the Thousand Treasures River. As he walked among the palaces, Luo Feng recalled all the scenes he had witnessed in the universe while wandering. He was shocked by everything that had happened in the past 50,000 years, but it was also clear when he looked back, as if it all followed a set of guidelines. The servants in front of the palace watched Luo Feng walk past. Look, it's Luo Feng. It's rare that Luo Feng ever walks out of his palace. Some of them only dared to pass messages through their mind, as they didn't have the guts to speak up. After all, they were only servants while Luo Feng was the disciple of Primal Chaos City Leader, the master of this space and time. That Luo Feng could kill an emperor limit before, but has been MIA for the past 80,000 years. There hasn't been any news about him becoming Undying. He could have become Undying a long time ago. Why does he stay a sector lord for such a long time? To comprehend space law, of course. After all, it's more beneficial to do so when you're a sector law. He must have been acknowledged by space law a long time ago. Becoming Undying wouldn't slow him down. Who knows what's in his mind? His peerless talent. Luo Feng walked towards them. Mr. Luo Feng. The servants saluted him, and Luo Feng glanced at them with a smile on his face. He could read the servants' minds after so many experiences in the universe. Apparently, his disappearance for the past 80,000 years had led to some controversies, but Luo Feng still smiled even though he knew they were talking about him. Being able to look through them and comprehend some operation law of the universe pleased him. Although they are undying, they've been servants for billions of years, thought Luo Feng. It has affected their minds. Perhaps they'll never become universe knights. The thought flashed through Luo Feng's mind, and then he kept walking. The scenes he had witnessed during his journey were playing in his mind like films on a screen. In the main palace of Thousand Treasures River, Primal Chaos City Leader sensed that Luo Feng, who had been in seclusion for 80,000 years, had finally walked out of the palace. He saw Luo Feng through all the buildings. He was walking with a smile so natural and authentic that it revealed his tranquil mental state. Said Primal Chaos City Leader, looking startled. His morphing. Primal Chaos City Leader could tell that all the experiences and inspirations Luo Feng had cultivated in the past 50,000 years were about to spur his significant transformation, like a scholar who had accumulated a plethora of research and was finally on the brink of an epiphany. Luo Feng was clearly on the brink of something incredible. For the past 50,000 years, he had witnessed and experienced so much that everything manifested the operation law of the universe in Luo Feng's eyes. It's a morphing of the mental state, Primal Chaos City Leader realized, gasping in admiration. My disciple is a genius. For about 5 hours, Luo Feng recalled everything he had witnessed and experienced in the past 50,000 years. He broke into laughter when he recalled how he had saved that teenager of the Taiku race. In the past 5 hours, his mental state had been sharply improved, and his mental state reached an extraordinary level. He didn't need to deliberately strengthen his willpower anymore, as his mental state was tranquil and still as the starry sky. He didn't need to resist the illusion anymore, as the illusion was nothing compared to the wonders of the actual universe. Now, even Chaos City Leader couldn't tell directly how Luo Feng had improved his mental state. After fighting for his family and his brothers when he was a teenager. After sacrificing everything to fight the golden horned beast and being resurrected. After the hustle and bustle of the talent battle. After the obsession with life and death inheritance. And finally, after 50,000 years of witnessing the mysteries in the universe. His willpower was already as strong as that of a universe overlord. Perhaps the only ones with willpower stronger than Luo Feng were universe masters. Time's up, realized Luo Feng. It's now time to become undying. Luo Feng was excited, as he thought it was natural and only right that he should become undying now. He walked back to his palace and sat down with his legs crossed. His mental state was like still, deep waters. Within his core, the version of Luo Feng, who had transformed from the origin pearl, opened his eyes. Aggression shot out from Luo Feng's eyes. They were peaceful like the sky and oceans, yet they were as keen as blades, glinting fiercely. "Break the shackles," he said. "I will become undying." Luo Feng waved his hands. 16,000 pearls floated in the sky, and law engravings were densely dotted on them. The pearls connected with each other immediately, and formed the skeleton of an aggressive, powerful beast god. "Star and fire soaring sky," Luo Feng whispered. "Crash and burn. Earth shattering." The beast god floating in the sky moved with a madness that showed he was ready and willing to crash and burn. Flames burned on his skin, trembling the core. Luo Feng's willpower, which couldn't be sharpened further, coupled with his beast god conception, having been trained for 80,000 years, infused the beast god with tremendous power. He charged at the inner wall directly, and smashed into it as if he were about to crumble. Crash and burn. Earth shattering. The third move of star map, star and fire soaring sky, crash and burn and earth shattering. The inner wall shook, followed by a loud sound. The wall was obliterated. After 80,000 years, the third move was completed. The first move, literally, hit the light racing star. The starlight spread all over the universe, was fast and light like constant raindrops. For the second move, splendid like stars, the red light ripped the nightfall like a blade. There was only one trick to it, its speed. The key benefit of this move was its speed. It wouldn't attack enemies millions of times like the first move. On the contrary, it made produced one attack. However, it was incredibly fast and powerful. The third move, star and fire soaring sky, crash and burn and earth shattering, was all about power. It was slower than the second move, but it was more than 10 times more powerful than the second move. The second move relied on the tail of the beast god, whereas the third relied on its entire body. It was definitely extremely powerful, and it would make enemies crash and burn. Each successive move was more mysterious and intricate than the previous one. Luo Feng broke the core shackles and immediately turned from the origin pearl connected to the gold law ocean of the land of origin in the universe. Gold law energy arrived at above Luo Feng's palace. Gold power flooded in. Some sector lords would only become ordinary undying fighters, which meant they only needed a small amount of godly power to make their bodies undying. But some powerful sector lords would become emperors the moment they became undying. They needed much more godly power, but the maximum was 100,000 times that of a sector lord. As for Luo Feng, his original earthling body had a life gene level of over 3,000 times, and his original earthling body became 300 million times stronger than sector lords once it became undying. His body was already far more powerful than most universe knights, as universe knights, with a life gene level of 10 times, only possessed strength 100 million times higher than sector lords. Unlimited gold godly power poured in. A godly body 300 million times stronger than that of a sector lord required an incredible amount of undying power. However, though Moshe body didn't require much undying power, Luo Feng's golden horned beast body was 600 million times stronger than a sector lord. Besides, he was over 600 miles long and thus required much more undying power than the original earthling body. But the most outrageous requirement belonged to the Bloody Sea. The Bloody Sea had a diameter of 6 billion miles, and its life gene level was perfect. It was 1 billion times stronger than a sector lord. It required hundreds of millions of times more undying power than the golden horned beast did. A human universe knight's godly body would only need godly power equivalent to a billionth of the Bloody Sea. That was why 9 Remoteness Master was invincible in the universe with his 9 Remoteness Ocean, which could rival the most powerful true treasures in the universe. It wasn't a big deal when someone became undying. Even when someone became a universe knight, it wasn't that much of a scene. But Luo Feng becoming undying was impressive. It was a spectacle thousands of times greater than True Yang Emperor becoming a Universe Knight. After all, he surpassed Universe Knights in terms of quality. As for the quantity of undying power, it was hundreds of millions of times more than human Universe Knights, all thanks to the Bloody Sea. Onlookers were stunned. What happened? They asked one another. What's going on? Gold Origin Law arrived. Did someone become undying? But how can becoming undying cause such a scene? Within the Thousand Treasures River, some Universe Knights and lots of undying servants looked to the sky above Luo Feng's palace in shock. Golden light almost enveloped the entire Thousand Treasures River. They could hardly remember a time when they had seen anything like this. Even some Universe Knights were thrilled. Becoming a Universe Knight is nothing compared to this. However, those Universe Knights and undying servants could only see the surface. Primal Chaos City Leader stood on top of the main palace, leaning against the handrail and looking up at the sky. The Gold Origin Law had completely enfolded Thousand Treasures River. It was inconceivably powerful, already more powerful than when someone became a Universe Knight. Other great beings couldn't see the mysteries behind this, but Primal Chaos City Leader could see dimly that the undying power was pouring into Thousand Treasures River, which revealed how vigorously Luo Feng was absorbing the undying power. Luo Feng has become undying. Even Primal Chaos City Leader was dazed. He stood there watching, speechless for a long while. The Universe Knights and undying servants within Thousand Treasures River all looked up at the boundless golden light up in the sky. They were all thrilled as they discussed this event. Unlimited Law Ocean is pouring in, and the undying power flows into Luo Feng's body. What a scene! Primal Chaos City Leader looked up, amazed. Even the 108 Princes of Nine Remoteness Master won't make such a scene when they become undying. Chaos City Leader had seen so much, and he knew this was the case for some beings with large bodies, but low density. Hence, the remote ocean body at the height of more than 55,000 miles could transform into an ocean with a diameter of 6 billion miles. Although the ocean was significantly larger, they both contained the same amount of energy. Since the water didn't have the same consistency as flesh and blood, the ocean had a comparatively lower density. However, an ocean with a diameter of 6 billion miles still held a godly power that was billions of times greater than human Universe Knights. I've witnessed the scene of several special life forms becoming undying, said Primal Chaos City Leader. Some of them were tens of millions of miles tall, but the scene was nothing compared to this one. The more impressive the scene was, the more powerful the special life forms were. Does this mean, he wondered, that Luo Feng is stronger than all the special life forms I've known? Chaos City Leader found this impossible to fathom, but it was difficult to argue in the face of the unprecedented power that came from the arrival of Universe Origin Law. Luo Feng. There are some deep secrets behind him, Primal Chaos City Leader whispered. Perhaps he's only revealing a small portion of his power in front of me. He smiled. All intelligent beings would hide their trump card, it was ingrained in them. Fantastic. When Luo Feng becomes a Universe Knight, the scene might be more terrific than many Universe Masters. There's soon to be born a supreme being within human race that can intimidate billions of races in the universe. Primal Chaos City Leader nodded mildly. He didn't know what fate Luo Feng had met with. By all appearances, everything he knew, even his remote ocean body, wouldn't have led to such a scene. After all, the remote ocean body only rivaled one of the 108 princes, who were just mediocre special life forms. Obviously, Luo Feng was hundreds if not thousands of times stronger than he looked. This disciple of mine. Primal Chaos City Leader looked at Luo Feng's palace from afar, and saw Luo Feng sitting there with his legs crossed. The original earthling body had completely become undying. How strong this force is. He smiled. Inside Luo Feng's palace, Luo Feng sat with his legs crossed. The godly force permeated the palace. Tian Chen Emperor and Ji Hong Emperor were both thrilled. Terrific. The force was stronger than that of ordinary Universe Knights. Master. Tian Chen Emperor and Ji Hong Emperor, who were both groveling, exchanged eye contact, looking frightened. Inside the internal world, an ocean of godly power poured in from the hollow, flooding into the bloody sea. The internal world looked like the apocalypse had come. Howl! Golden horned beast floated in the sky among the pouring waters of the godly power ocean, howling with excitement. Ha ha! Fantastic! Fantastic! Luo Feng, dressed in black, stood atop the golden horned beast, looking at the godly power ocean. My original earthling body, golden horned beast body, and Mosha body became undying immediately. Soul imprint merged with the godly power completely, and the godly power is all mine. However, this bloody sea of mine. Luo Feng looked at the bloody sea from afar. Its color was changing. It was originally blood red, but the color appeared to be fading. The density of godly power in the ocean kept getting higher. The limitless waters of the godly power ocean poured down and filled the area. The energy a universe knight requires to recover his godly body costs so much that it's much more costly than a treasure, Luo Feng murmured. My remote ocean's godly power is better in quality than a universe knight's, and it has billions of times more godly power, which means my remote ocean is more precious than billions of treasures combined. Perhaps it's as valuable as a true treasure, even a high-end true treasure. Luo Feng smiled looking at the remote ocean. With this remote ocean by my side, will there be any universe knights who can make me cower? Luo Feng suddenly understood the source of Nine Remoteness Master's pride. While in the Nine Remoteness Ocean, Nine Remoteness Master wasn't even afraid of Universe Supreme Masters. As for Luo Feng, few Universe Knights could strike him down in his remote ocean. As enormous as the remote ocean was, the Gold Law Ocean from the universe origin was much mightier. After a short while, the entire bloody sea was transformed into a godly power ocean. The water was tumbling in the ocean, and was made up of godly power a billion times stronger than a sector lord's power. Remote ocean, with a diameter of 6 billion miles. Luo Feng looked down at the remote ocean. Creation. Suddenly, a remote ocean body that was more than 5,000 miles tall walked out from the waves. Recover. The larger the body was, the more quickly he absorbed the godly power. A 6-foot human absorbed godly power hundreds of millions of times more slowly than a world tree, 60 million miles tall. This went without saying, appetite of an ant was nothing compared to a dragon. A dragon would eat more in a single bite than an ant could eat in its entire life. In the same way, a godly body standing 5,000 miles tall would only take the remote ocean a couple of minutes to supply its energies. Dissipate. Gather. Remote ocean body instantly dissipated into water and merged with the ocean. The remote ocean expanded but only slightly. An outsider probably wouldn't have been able to tell simply by looking at it. It's true that after becoming undying, the remote ocean can expand further, Luo Feng whispered. However, remote ocean can only expand by absorbing godly power gradually. It's so large that it needs a huge amount of godly power to increase its diameter by even a foot. How many years did it take Nine Remoteness Master to expand his ocean? Luo Feng felt fortunate. If he hadn't become undying, and couldn't transform his bodies into godly ones at one time, he would have needed an eternity to supply enough godly power for an ocean with a diameter of more than 6 billion miles. Inside the palace, Luo Feng smiled and got up. Master, Qian Chen Emperor and Ji Hong Emperor said respectfully. You two, stay here, Luo Feng ordered, then walked out of the palace. Luo Feng teleported himself in front of the palace where Primal Chaos City Leader lived, where some of the undying servants of Universe Knights stood. So powerful. The power. 2 Universe Knights standing afar were terrified, and the undying servants were all trembling. Little did they know that this was only the force coming from the original earthling body, and it would be hundreds of times more extraordinary if it came from the golden horned beast body, or the remote ocean. Luo Feng waited outside the palace. Although the door was open, everything inside was dimming, and he couldn't see things straight. Come in, came a voice from inside the palace. Luo Feng walked into the palace, and saw Primal Chaos City Leader standing in the distance. Luo Feng gave a salutation. Teacher. Primal Chaos City leader gazed at Luo Feng. Have you become undying? He asked after remaining silent for a long while. Yes, Luo Feng answered. Fantastic. You're doing better than I thought. Primal Chaos City leader nodded with satisfaction. He was content, happy, and even exhilarated. He nurtured all these disciples because he wanted to produce more great beings who could become the future pillars of the human race. Not only did Luo Feng meet his expectations, but he had also surpassed that to a huge extent. Even I can't sense the extent of your power now, Primal Chaos City leader asked. Do you think you can defeat Zhuchong Emperor? Luo Feng was dazed. He answered, yes, I can. Indeed, he could. Luo Feng's golden horned beast body had a higher life gene level than Zhuchong Emperor. His willpower, self-created techniques, and true treasures were all Zhuchong Emperor's better. Even if he was defeated once, he could be revived time and time again with his remote ocean. He wasn't afraid of anything with his newfound immortality. Fantastic. Fantastic. Primal Chaos City leader nodded. What's your next step? Find an address of the God country and build it, Luo Feng answered. A God country is vital. Primal Chaos City leader nodded. Interlayers of the space are immeasurable. Choose a deeper area. I understand. Luo Feng nodded. Go, Primal Chaos City leader said with a wave of his hands. Luo Feng gave a salutation and left. Primal Chaos City leader wouldn't meddle with Luo Feng's choices given his current power. Luo Feng would be the one to make his decisions from now on. Luo Feng left the primal region and arrived at the god country of his slaves. Master of my master, where should we go now? The slave of another race grovelled in veneration. Star Tower, Luo Feng whispered. Yes, the slave answered and connected with the keepsake in Star Tower. Luo Feng had left it in the Star Tower before. No need to create the god country first. I can go there later. My remote ocean is better than most universe nights, quality-wise and quantity-wise, it's outrageously large. I'll see whether I can drive the most powerful true treasure, Star Tower. Luo Feng couldn't wait to give it a try. Star Tower was 9 light years tall. It was so enormous, as if it were covering half the universe. This most powered true treasure in the universe had led to mass slaughtering among the 4 pinnacle races, yet no great being was able to take it. The true treasure became a battlefield for billions of races in the universe, and countless undying fighters died inside. Inside the tower, at the core palace, a blurry, golden light was glowing as Luo Feng walked out of the golden light. Star Tower. Luo Feng smiled. He felt the joy from Star Tower. Go to seal space. Luo Feng walked to the edge of the palace, and a portal leading to seal space appeared. Star Tower was innately a sealing true treasure, and seal space was its center. It was vast with black ground and cordilleras. Luo Feng flew up and looked down at the ground. Remote ocean, show up. Luo Feng yelled. With the earth shattering, the remote ocean appeared in the seal space out of nowhere. Remote ocean body, earthling original body, Mosha body, and golden horned beast body could all enter and exit the internal world instantly. Of course, after the internal world and space fragmented, being merged and turning into a god country, it would happen no more. The internal world could still exist for a while after someone becoming undying, but after a certain amount of time, the internal world would start to crumble. A diameter of 6 billion miles. Luo Feng stood on the ocean, stepped on the waves, and pride filled his heart. Such godly power. Boundless. Star Tower. Drive. Luo Feng started to control Star Tower with his mind. Willpower wasn't closely related to actual power, but had a lot to do with one's training and experience. However, with consciousness bound together with power, a sector lord could kill a universe-level fighter with one look, as his consciousness force could crush a universe-level fighter's soul. After becoming undying, consciousness depended on godly power. Luo Feng's remote ocean body had greater godly power than most universe knights, and he had a terrifically large amount of such power. His consciousness surpassed most universe knights, and had reached the universe overlord level. Water pillars swirled and extended to the hollow around them. They penetrated Star Tower, and the godly power merged with the entire Star Tower. Mysterious force emanated from Star Tower, and the seal stars and lore engravings on the heavenly pillar bewildered Luo Feng. It's so complicated. I can't comprehend them at all. But it feels so good when my godly power and Star Tower completely merged with each other. I don't need to care about the meaning of the lore engravings. I'll use my force. Luo Feng clenched his teeth and growled. Move. Star Tower barely trembled. The amplification was so small that it was not visible. This is too difficult to drive. Luo Feng was a bit stupefied. He felt like an ant trying to push a rock. Godly power, burn. Drive. Luo Feng clenched his teeth. All the godly power in Star Tower started to burn, and it became 1,000 times more powerful. Star Tower started to move, and Luo Feng now felt like an ant carrying a grain of rice. Though it was still heavy, he could at least run with it. Luo Feng stopped after moving Star Tower only a little bit. Stop. Luo Feng stopped burning his godly power. Oh my god. I've already burned godly power dozens of times more than that of remote ocean body. Luo Feng was dazed. Though I can move Star Tower, I can't drive it like I do on other true treasures. Luo Feng shook his head. It was supposed to be easy when utilizing weapons. A spiritual force weapon was supposed to be at light speed when being utilized. When Luo Feng used Star Map, the stars would shoot out like lightning. On the other hand, he needed to burn his godly power when driving Star Tower, and it was still so slow that enemies could totally dodge it. No wonder, Luo Feng whispered. No wonder masters were Shan, who said I can only drive Star Tower when I become a universe knight. He gave me the 9-volume manual, and knew that I had a golden horned beast body. He could tell that I could easily achieve a life gene level thousands of times greater, but he still speculated that I needed to be a universe knight. Luo Feng nodded. It seems I don't have enough godly power, and neither do I have deep lore comprehension. There were 2 ways to drive spiritual force weapons. One way was to achieve adequately deep lore comprehension, which could amplify the effect of godly power tenfold. The other way was to obtain a large amount of godly power. If I'm really able to drive Star Tower, I'll be capable of changing the size of Star Tower to make it move as fast as lightning. Luo Feng shook his head. I'm only Undying. It seems that I'm not yet qualified to use this supreme true treasure. Supreme true treasures were extremely precious in the universe. Only universe supreme masters or universe masters could use those true treasures, and one of the reasons was that the conditions for utilizing supreme true treasures was so harsh. Although Luo Feng had a perfect life gene level, he was still only Undying. He would be dreaming if he thought he was able to drive Star Tower now. If it weren't for the remote ocean, Luo Feng couldn't have even moved Star Tower with his other bodies. After all, he had consumed an enormous amount of godly power just now. Remote ocean, come back. Luo Feng stood above remote ocean. The remote ocean went back to his internal world. I will be one of the strongest beings in the universe when I'm able to drive Star Tower, Luo Feng whispered in the palace. He understood that he couldn't compare with universe masters like Primal Chaos City Leader and Master of Sky Wolf, even though he was indeed incredibly strong. However, his newfound immortality could already be a problem for some universe masters. Star Map was already an ultimate technique. The first move required 160 stars, the second required 520 stars, and the third needed 1,600 stars. When all the 1,600 stars combined, their power was increased exponentially. Luo Feng presumed that he would need more stars when he created later moves of Star Map, so he took some seal stars from Star Tower, and thus the stars on Star Map amounted to 10,000. I'll go and create my god country now. Back to the human territory. Luo Feng stepped into the golden glow. He disappeared. Inside the human territory, within the Ganwu universe, Luo Feng teleported himself into a region of space 50 million light-years from Earth, where there was nothing but dying planets and stars. "I'll choose this place," Luo Feng whispered. He thought he shouldn't follow any rules when choosing a god country. Zoom. Luo Feng tore the space apart and stepped into the interlayers. There were thousands of layers in the space interlayers. The first layer was shattered, fragmented space. The second layer was the god country. The third layer was the space flood. These were categorized in terms of an ordinary undying fighter. To the real supreme beings in the universe, there was only one vast layer of space interlayers. The closer it was to the original universe, the smaller the space fragments were, and the farther it was, the larger the fragments were. And the deeper the space interlayers, the more dangerous it got. At the safest areas, even sector lords could survive. However, some areas could be life-threatening even to some universe knights. Luo Feng teleported himself and flew past the god country layer. He entered the space flood layer, opened his Shawu wings, and flew deeper. Ordinary undying fighters will establish their god countries in the god country layer, Luo Feng whispered. Some supreme beings will do the same thing. However, they'll move their god country deeper toward the space flood layer when they become stronger. The deeper it was, the safer the god country would be. Godly power was infused in the Shawu wings, which made them stronger. It started to fly among the space flood like a flash of light. The space fragments are getting larger and larger, some with diameters of 6 billion miles. Luo Feng could only see those enormous space fragments. There were already land and water on some of them. They were flying at high speed, and once they hit someone, especially the ones with a diameter of 6 billion miles, they could annihilate an emperor instantly. Luo Feng flew deeper and deeper. Sometimes, he teleported himself to dodge a colossal space fragment. His internal world had a diameter of 600 billion miles, so he needed to choose a space fragment that was of equal height, width, and length. 2 days after, Luo Feng finally saw some space fragments with a diameter of 1 trillion kilometers, and some were even larger. "I need to be careful. Space fragments of this size can possibly kill a universe knight." Luo Feng was extremely careful. Those space fragments all came from the space flood, and they could easily hit someone because they flew so fast. Fortunately, Luo Feng had his Shawu wings, which helped him dodge the space fragments nimbly. Luo Feng teleported himself around a space fragment that had the largest diameter of 3.9 trillion miles and the smallest diameter of 1.3 trillion miles. It could merge with his internal world completely. Build the god country. Luo Feng opened his wings and triggered his internal world. Suddenly, an invisible force burst out from his internal world, and it locked that space fragment. An enormous world showed up out of nowhere, as if it existed in an illusion or another dimension. It flew toward the targeted space fragment, and the space fragment was likewise drawn to it. One looked real, and one looked like a void. They got closer and closer to each other. Space trembled, and all the other space fragments avoided it. The world and the huge space fragment merged, stabilizing each other. A new, real world was born, and after a short while, the illusory world completely disappeared. It was his god country. This video will end here.